You're listening to the My Simplified Life podcast, and this is episode number 92. Welcome to the My Simplified Life podcast, a place where you will learn that your past and even your present don't define your future. Regardless of what stage of life you're in, I want you to feel inspired and encouraged to pursue your dreams, simplify your life, and start taking action today. I'm your host, Michelle Glogovac, and I'm excited to share my stories and life lessons with you while taking you on my own journey. This is My Simplified Life. Hello, friends, and welcome back to another episode. I'm your host, Michelle Glogovac. In a mere 2 days, I am celebrating a very big birthday, the big 4-0. I have to say that I'm actually really excited about it. I wasn't excited about turning 30, and I remember on the last day of being 29, I walked into the room and just looked at my now husband, Ted, and I burst into tears. I was so sad to be turning 30, and I have no idea why. Maybe it's that quarter-life crisis thing where you don't feel like you are where you should be, or that you suddenly wake up realizing you're not doing something you love. Well, the last 10 years have been incredible, and maybe that's why I'm so freaking excited about turning 40. In the last decade, life has happened. I've learned so much about who I am, who I want to be, and really what I want to be when I grow up. I think we graduate high school thinking we are ready for the world, and boy, we are not. College comes and goes, and then we are thrust into the work world and suddenly realize that we're in charge of our own lives. Even after 40 years, I wonder how it is that I own a house and cars, and I'm responsible for not only myself, but 2 more humans. FYI, they don't come with a manual, and yet you're supposed to ensure they're healthy, fed, educated, go to doctor appointments and checkups, and more. You have to plan for your own retirement, and at some point, you'll need to apply for a mortgage or a car loan and get that all sorted. And so I've done all of that and then some. I've learned more than I thought possible along the way. I was laid off twice from corporate jobs. My husband was laid off. We survived and even thrived. I worried, of course, but I'm not someone who can simply have something bad happen and not do something about it. When it came to my husband's layoff, I was on the phone with my HR department before his HR department hung up, just to make sure that our insurance was getting switched over and was in order. When I was laid off, I got right to looking at a new job before the day was over. The second time around, I figured it was time to do something for myself and my tiny humans that didn't involve me traveling the country wherever it was dictated, and to do something that would actually make a positive impact and difference in the world. In between these layoffs, we bought a house, which happened to be a short sale and an absolute nightmare, but in the end, we have a home, and it's all ours. During this past decade, I got engaged and married. My first pregnancy resulted in a miscarriage that felt like rock bottom because my husband and I knew about our baby and we had told my stepkids just days before. But we kept trying, and when it took a year and no progress, we turned to fertility drugs. I got pregnant again, and at 6 weeks was told I was miscarrying again. I really thought there was no deeper hell than that moment in time, but I insisted on waiting longer. And after 2 weeks and a lot of tears and anger, we discovered that the little bubble guppy was in fact still growing and dancing and had simply been hiding. Please note that I'm not a fan of hide and seek any longer. It was around that time that I said I was not going to plan every detail as I became a mom because I'm an organizer to a T, but I know that having children makes that impossible. The only thing I insisted on when I was creating my unplanned birth plan was that I hands down did not want a C-section. I would take all the drugs and epidurals necessary, but no surgery for me. Do you want to know how that turned out? I had my son via emergency C-section, and almost exactly a year later, had my daughter via scheduled C-section. As a reminder, plan, but know that whatever is meant to be is just going to happen. I allowed myself to try a few freelancing gigs before landing in the podcast and public relations industries. I launched a business that was completely new to me and that I've fallen in love with. I've met new people, networked, created relationships, and more. I've worked from home while having 2 tiny humans with me at all times. I worked on other people's podcasts before realizing that I should have my own. And here we are, 92 episodes later, and I'm still recording in my closet with no end in sight. I've reached out to complete strangers to simply say I appreciate the work they're doing because I genuinely do. Some of those connections have turned into conversations that have changed my life and hopefully the lives of others. Some have turned into friendships that I know will forever be a part of my life. Some have turned into business relationships, and others are still evolving. I've put myself out there and don't regret a single instance of doing so. I've learned that being genuine and allowing yourself to be vulnerable will actually be beneficial and appreciated by others. I've also learned that if my genuineness is overlooked or taken advantage of, then I have permission to learn from the experience and move on. Not everyone is who they portray themselves to be, online or even in person. This can be a tough pill to swallow, but when you recognize that some human beings are incapable of saying thank you or treating you as you should be treated, move on. There are others who will appreciate you as much as you appreciate them. I defined work-life balance for myself and the fact that balance is bullshit. It's really about choosing to live in the present moment and creating a life that you love and are able to enjoy. It's about remembering to breathe when things are really tough and feel overwhelming because you will get through this. I've realized that working for myself and the quote-unquote freedom that comes along with it means not feeling guilty for working outside by the pool while the kids play, or simply taking the afternoon off to be in the pool with them. It's definitely a learning curve coming from the corporate world where you feel you have to always be on and always be answering to someone. I work for myself and I have clients, but I don't work full-time for any one person. Therefore, I don't have to be answering emails or phone calls all day, every day. I'm actually in charge of my own calendar and unapologetically block days off from meetings. It's an incredible feeling, but also one that didn't come naturally for me and one that I still tend to struggle with. But man, I'm getting better at it. One of the greatest achievements of the past decade for me has been in discovering not only my voice, but how to use it and be proud of it. I'd like to think I've always stood for what is right, but I now know that I wasn't always standing up and speaking out for what is right. I've taken time to have conversations and to simply listen in order to do better. I've educated myself not only in listening to whomever is speaking, but in seeking out those that I want to learn from and going deeper. I sought out a therapist who has been instrumental in helping me find my voice and confidence. I finally and fully dealt with my childhood and stood up for the little girl who did her very best to fend for herself and her brother all those years, and yet still felt guilty over 30 years later. I recognize that I've already broken cycles in the way I'm raising my kids, the relationship I have with my husband, the independence I've chosen for myself, and I don't have to be afraid of my children growing up the way I did. You see, I lost my father at the age of 7, and although I know how hard this was on my mom, especially because I'm just about the same age as she was when he died, I haven't been able to understand why or how she could prioritize herself and her needs over those of my brother and I. For decades, I never asked why or demanded an apology or even just an acknowledgement. It's not that I felt that it was my fault, but I thought it was my duty for some reason to be a good daughter and to continue to play the part, even if it meant being put down, judged, emotionally drained, and feeling like I was the only one who actually experienced those years. Here's the thing. I stopped speaking to my mother the day after my wedding over 8 years ago. I finally hit a point where I was done with it all and wouldn't stand for it. I couldn't stand for it. I had to stand up for myself. That, of course, was met with resistance, and again, I was made to feel like I had done something wrong. This year, I asked for an acknowledgement. I didn't make any demands, just simply wanted her to say that what I experienced was real, and for me to be able to say I didn't understand why or how. I'm now a mom of 2 tiny beings that look to me for all the protection in the world, and you can bet your life that is what I give them, along with all my love and everything else I can. I know that as we discuss self-care, we need to prioritize ourselves, but I also believe that our children need to be the priority when it comes to some extremes, such as losing a parent. I've discovered the importance in addressing your past and doing whatever it takes to heal from the trauma and experiences you've gone through. Acknowledge them for the fact that they helped mold the person you are today, but rid yourself of any guilt, shame, or worry. In the end, you're probably a lot stronger today because of what you went through, and you should thank yourself for protecting you the way you did. I paid attention to my mental health and learned how to prioritize it. I said no and was okay with it. I set boundaries and ensured the circle of people I surrounded myself with are not only good people, but treat me as I deserve to be treated. This goes for friends and clients. I also set boundaries around the work I do. When I left the career I'd known for almost 2 decades, I allowed myself to try different things and pivot when it felt necessary. When I discovered podcasting, I learned every aspect of the industry, and when I recognized my love for pitching, I followed that. I eliminated the service offerings that weren't bringing me joy, and the moment I did that, my business actually increased. I expanded a bit into traditional media pitching, but kept the specialty of the podcast industry, and it served me well in standing out as unique. I've landed major media features for clients, being interviewed by the media and podcasts myself, met an entire new network of PR professionals who are the most supportive cheerleaders I've ever encountered. I've applied to be a speaker at several events and have not only been asked to speak, but even paid to speak. I get to talk over and over about a topic I've become very passionate about. Launching my own platforms has given me the opportunity to not only speak about podcasting and publicity, but about topics that I feel strongly about. My age and experience has also brought about the freedom and necessity to speak about what is right and wrong from the mountaintops. I won't be silenced when it comes to Black Lives Mattering or how we need to do better at raising anti-racist children, or how love is truly love, and it doesn't matter who you are, that you have every right to love and marry whomever you want. That a woman's body is hers and hers alone, and she should have every right to take care of it the way she sees fit. That we all deserve respect and equal rights across the board. The list goes on and is quite long, and I'm extremely proud of myself for no longer allowing myself to sit back and be silent. My intention is to raise my children in the same way and ensure the world they grow up in is vastly different than it is today. Something most of us did this past year that I deemed to be a huge accomplishment wasn't homeschooling our kids. For me, it was a kindergartner and having a tiny sidekick at my desk at all times. I managed to keep my family healthy during a global pandemic, and not only did we survive, but I think it's safe to say that we thrived. We grew closer as a family, as a neighborhood, and we literally survived being together 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for well over a year. I'm not sure why we haven't been given trophies for this accomplishment. I think the common theme over the past decade for myself was that it's all been about growth. I grew in who I am, what I stand for and believe in, and how I want to move forward in my life. It hasn't been all rainbows and unicorns. It's been a journey. There have been many tears in this past decade, many stressful moments, times in which I questioned, what the hell am I doing? Where am I going in all of this? But it's been a decade of finding myself, of getting comfortable with who I am, and above all, loving who I am. I've created a bucket list on a Post-it that I look at daily, and friends, this next decade is going to be off the freaking charts with what I'm about to do. For those of you in your 20s, know that 30 is just the beginning. For those of you in your 30s, embrace this time because it's a decade of growth and really getting to know yourself. For those of you in your 40s, I am so excited to be a part of your club now, and I'm really excited to see the amazing things we have yet to accomplish. Thank you for joining me once again today and for being on this journey with me. I'll be celebrating 40 the rest of this week by the pool if you need me. Until next week, remember to live your life to the fullest, embrace who you are and how you got here, and know that the best is yet to come.